Hey, and so welcome back. And so what we want to do is also delve into, excuse me, delve into sort of the Native American indigenous removal. And this is an extension of what we're looking at in terms of like these terms like settler colonialism, right? So we have this sort of the US, the colonizer, right? Really looking at sort of utilizing this sort of break from their sort of you know the break from like the European domination that they were achieving, but also realizing that as a result, right, we also have this sort of new nation that is built, and as a result, you have Native American and indigenous removal that also sort of takes place, sort of after right these the sort of the revolution, right, and we see this sort of takeover of land that then ensues. And one of the first folks to sort of really experience that are the Native Americans and sort of the indigenous removal that we see. And maybe we've read a little bit about this, or maybe we've learned a little bit about this in our high school curriculum. But again, this is something that we really want to sort of unpack and delve into too. So I think this unit and this page in particular is really important. So again, reading through what Native American removal is, and sort of getting a clearer understanding. And although this is more of I would even consider it more of like a contemporary sort of mainstream source. With history.com, it kind of gives us a really good breakdown of like the history of Native American removal and the Trail of Tears in particular. So what we see here is Native American removal. The removal of indigenous Native Americans in the United States presents the inner workings of settler colonialism. There's ongoing genocide in indigenous communities where they were viewed as non-human savages. The erasure is endemic and is foundational to how indigenous Native Americans are viewed and how we occupy land today. So really thinking about these sort of three main concepts of how we are perceiving, or how I guess the United States is perceiving Native Americans in this very problematic way, right? There's an ongoing genocide, right, where they were viewed as non-human savages, right? And so even this terminology that is being used to describe Native Americans is very problematic, and that in turn is then spurning, right, this sort of desire to sort of remove folks, right, from land that is essentially like agreed upon that the Native Americans could keep, right, at this time. And so, we see this settler colonialism really happening and enacting, here in the United States. And so it's very violent, right? And it's very confusing, especially with like some of the language that's being used, but it's also very othering, right? When you see something like savages being thrown around to describe a particular community, a particular group of people. And so then we have the erasure is endemic and is foundational to how indigenous Native Americans are viewed, right? And how we see and occupy land today, and how this kind of plays into even Native American the reservations that are put into place as a result of Native American removal. Now, for the indigenous or Native Americans, right, land is sacred and central to their culture. Yet white European settlers stole it and claimed it as theirs, right? So there's this claim, this sort of claim that their land is not necessarily their land, but it is European settlers, right? Their land, right? And so this is where we see this large contradiction when we look at Native American removal, especially when you have all of these sort of treaties through the federal government that are put into place, and so when we think about these areas like Georgia, right, like the Atlanta area, right, these are very very sacred lands, even to this day, to Native Americans, especially the Cherokee, who are really deeply impacted by this removal. So I'm not going to go through these few slides or these few points like verbatim. I want you to sort of sit with this and read the history.com sort of at least synopsis and summary that is provided for us, and but also applying like a critical lens. Like this is not at all a project to look at things and say, well, it's part of our history, but rather, not just looking at it and just sort of accepting that it's part of a history, but rather it still continues on into today, right? There are these issues with, the federal government, that continue today in terms of like, sort of setting aside land for Native Americans that was promised to them, and yet you see, water being sort of appropriated from these lands, et cetera. And so thinking about how, even though we see these as these sort of moments that have happened throughout history, we have to realize that there's a continuation that is happening even to this day. So, I will leave it to you all to sort of read through some of these excerpts, but also reading through the primary sources that I upload for this particular unit. I think it's important that we sit with these ideas and also like realize how complex, right, our lived experiences are, especially in the United States, and really looking at things, especially our history, through a critical lens.